Hello, everybody. Welcome to our last lecture of this pre-event session for the Global Game Jam. Today, we are joined by Maja Salamon, which I knew for like quite some time, but only met once. And she's a quite enthusiastic and lively person. And she's also a musician and a composer. And today she will tell us more about how like music can enhance your game, and how you can make like better, more immersive games in your game jam. And before we jump into in like before we jump and talk with Maya, I would just like to mention that there is still time to join Slovenia Global Game Jam. You can hop on our Discord and join us there. And without further ado, I will switch to Maya, and she can tell us more.
do anything with sound. There's a lot of free programs, and one of them being Audacity, or you might be familiar with GarageBand. So you'll be able to do similar things, whether it's just recording or even creating instrumental sounds with those. But let's get right to it. So today's today's presentation, I decided to focus on three different atmospheric environments. That being a town, a snowy, and space. I figured that those three are very different in their own retrospect. You could have done magical forest, futuristic city, whatever it may be. And when you're developing a game yourself, you're putting your game into a setting. And so you want to bring it to life with sound. I'm very, very, very happy and delighted that my friend Blue Skittle was very kind to allow me to use his artwork today. I did enhance it to make it with a little bit of visual effects to make it a little bit more alive to kind of help with the whole feel of it. Um, and yeah, so I've only taken about 30 seconds of each. I'll be spending possibly around 30 minutes maximum, and I will time myself on each part. Again, I'm just going to be displaying mostly just very simple, very stereotypical, I suppose, things that you can do, instruments that you can use, and a little bit of music theory, but not too much because honestly, if you want to create sound or just work with it or even make music, you do not necessarily have to be a music theory whiz. All right, so let's get started. First of all, we'll go with town. Now, with towns, I tend to love to use a library called East West Raw. Now, you don't have to worry about yourself about these libraries because they tend to be very expensive. There is a lot of free ones, however, on the market. One instrument particularly that does really well, if I can remember to find it, is a centaur, or more specifically, a hammered dulcimer. It creates this really enriching sound that's very like a little bit of medieval, particularly if you're working in an environment that's kind of like D&D town related. If you think of D&D, it's kind of that feel. Um, oh, it's not working. That's right. I forgot. I apologize. I just got a new desktop. Still trying to get all my sounds activated and working. All right, that's where we improvise. All right, so another library. I might be able to find it here. So it should be world. There it is, world, and we're looking for. Hmm, might be on the strings. Oh, there we go, sitar. Now let's see if this one sounds the way that I want it to sound. No. Okay. Let's try find the closest sounding instrument. All right, so I'm going to be using Nyatiti. It's not quite what I was going for. However, we can work literally with any sound. So, because from the imagery, I get the feel of that kind of like a slightly older, a little bit of anime, fantasy kind of feel. So I'm feeling that I want to go with something a little bit more Celtic like. So here, what's happening is that the BPM is a little bit faster than what I would like. However, that's okay. And I'm just going to move that to pattern 2. Oop, that's not what I wanted. that's just a very, very basic little melody. And and now I'm going to take it into here and give it a little bit of reverb. It's going to register it. It is registering. Great. Awesome. So now the way I tend to compose can be a little bit different to some. Depends also what type of music I'm making. So if I'm making electronic music, you'll see I have a lot of different tracks here. But when I'm making anything a little bit more either orchestral or fantasy or anything like that, then I tend to kind of score it similarly to what you would do in either Sibelius or handwritten, except you're still using piano tabs. Um, Now, so I have won't be able to do it too much because it is very late. However, what I can do is I'm taking my violin. So this is where some sampling work comes in. And there we go. I'm just quickly gonna do a little bit of this. Now, I could spend hours on that and really trying to get it perfected, but we don't have that much time. So, let's see what's the best one. All right, we can take that sample. Simple. Again, I'm just using a very basic Huxley microphone, quite inexpensive. So I have that here. I can shorten it a little bit. And then I will go into, place it into, let's see, let's go 20. And I already have, so what I'm going to try and recreate is a bit of a seagull because we do have some water here. So I'm just imagining there's some seagulls in the background without so much reverb. Without so much reverb. Number 20. Let's give you a color so I don't lose you. Oh, I'm just looking at the chat. Hello. Hi, everyone. This picture looks nice. It's inspired from Made in Abyss anime. It actually might be. A Blue Skittle does a lot of fan art or inspired art by video games. All right, my input volume's a little bit low. Yeah, I unfortunately Streamlabs There we go. That should be a little bit better. Streamlabs doesn't convey sound very well, and I haven't figured out how to fix it quite yet, but we'll get there. All right, so yeah, if you'd like to um, I'm just gonna drop quick little bit links so you can find more of that work, of his work there. But yeah, let's continue. I hope, is this any better? All right, so ooh, okay, that was. I apologize for your ears. It is now distorting everything really badly, and it's because that's on too. So yeah, I could spend a lot of time just trying to refine that sound. But you can literally use anything, um, and just let your imagination go crazy. uh, so um, then, unfortunately, I don't have a car with me, so and I don't imagine there would be cars in this town, but I imagine there might be horses. So if I just look around me, I will use a metal bowl that I have for actually something else coming up. And I will try to recreate the hoof sound of horses. Now, you can do this with multiple different things if you put some metal things um, on your fingertips or different things. It's a mixture of sound design and Foley. But in Slovenian game community, there is actually a professional Foley artist. His name is Yaka. So if you want to know more or anything like that, he's definitely the person to go to. That'll do. All right. Now you can also layer sounds and things like that just to create more texture to it. I won't be doing that right now. 21. All right, and I'll add a little bit of a filter, and I'm gonna gonna add an automation to make it go. Create automation. And what this is going to do is, oops, actually make it go over here. There we go. Though the hooves tend to be a little bit closer together. Um, and it's just really in the background. Obviously, then you can play more with creating further reverb and distancing and things like that. All right, now let's work on some more of the music. So I'm just gonna add some cello and make it pizzicato. And then we go back up here and I just take this away and I can add, so I'm just imagining it now, just kind of creating a story in my mind. So in the terms of a video game, this is if I was requested to create like an atmosphere and music, so basically just the whole package, I would be thinking about what kind of a space is this? Is it, and what kind of events are happening? What is the game about? Is it, are you being chased? Are you chasing something? So that would be faster paced. If this was a specific scene, which is more so what I'm going on with here, it's a little bit more relaxed. Um, and I'm just imagining playful. Um, it looks like a bit adventurous, so it depends on a lot of variables, and there's also a lot of creative freedom to it. Now let's add some violins. So this is where I'm adding a little bit more of that adventure that I spoke about, that I'm just kind of imagining here. Obviously, this is not for any particular game. I don't have any kind of details that I've been given to what is required or anything like that. So it's actually a lot harder to work quickly when you don't have set instructions or a very specific idea of what you want to do or have to make. So my string thingy just changed. There we go. So I don't know if you noticed, I am actually working in 3/4 in a 4/4. Well, 3/4 in a 4/4 derpiness. So I am breaking a couple of laws here, but that's what I meant earlier. Is that it's great to know music theory because it helps you, but you can also do it without. If this is your first time getting into composition or audio, anything like that, I suggest look at some basics. If and when you have some time, learn chords, chord of progression, obviously notes, things like that. But again, it's not necessary. You can just simply work with sound, at least to get started. So here I'm just adding some accents. Oh, oh, I'm I'm at the snowy already. So so we have a question from the audience. What kind of direction do you usually get? What kind of direction do you usually get? Is it mostly art, graphics, or also description, moods, etc.? So, depending on what the project is, it really depends. And it extremely depends on who you're working with. Sometimes you'll work with either a director or game designer who's only going to be like, hey, I want, let's say, chiptune music for this game. It's an adventure game. I need it by tomorrow, or, you know, whatever those details are. It's very vague. Um, so, in those situations, it's good to ask questions yourself. Um, but other times you can get very, very specific. Now, some of the good questions to ask is, what is the deadline? Um, what what is the genre of the game? How many music pieces do you need, or approximately how many do you envision? How long do you need each piece to be? For example, 1 minute, 2 minute. uh, does the music need to loop? um, Looping is actually made quite easy. I'll just quickly explain how you loop it. So basically what you would do is, if we have this, what we created here, we would render it really quickly. Then I'm just going to pop in something I've rendered earlier. Uh, let's say this is actually for the Global Game Jam, one of the pieces I'm working on. So this one I actually rendered with a cut. But what it's going to have when I'm making a loop is extended noise past this point. So past bar 61, it's going to have extra noise in here. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to cut it and put it in the beginning. Here you won't notice any particular difference. Oops. But usually there's a little bit of a like a reverb. So again, it depends on what kind of music you're composing. And then all you do is you make sure you take off all the extra effects, limiters, things like that, and you just render it again. And then, yeah, depends again what kind of sizes you're working with. You want to render it as a hello? Sorry, my microphone cut out. You want to render it as either a wave, most of the time, wave, because that is a lossless file. So it means your music will be 100% in the quality that you would have hoped it to be. MP3, you can't really tell the difference that much, but the files are much smaller, so you'll just have to ask what kind of a file, if they are aware of that they require. There is some programs that do require only OGG, but nowadays there's not very many game developers, if you're composing for a video game, that do use that. Another thing you want to ask is, what did I go through? Um, so yeah, deadline. Yeah, you want to know what kind of style they want. So if we're just thinking about this is just a game jam, how much music do you need? How long? What is the style? Do if more than one piece, are they different? Does one need to be like an adventure, upbeat, and the other one like a dark and battle scene? So you want to know those kind of specifics. Um, then you want to ask also if they have any temp music, because game designers or whoever is kind of in charge of you, uh, or just the story in general behind the game, or even if it's a film or animation, um, they probably have ideas in mind, and they might have already been listening to the kind of music that they want. So temp music is amazing to help because it helps you as a composer to know what they're looking for. um, but don't be afraid to add your own creative flair to it, because it's it's about, meeting their requests. But depends on the person and environment, things like that. It's also good to give your own flair to things. And even if perhaps you might get a great idea about something and it's different, slightly different, or totally different to what they were going for, give them give them a listen of the preview. Don't work on the whole piece, just give them a little bit and say, hey, I had this in mind, would you be interested for me to work with this? And then it'll just be yes and no. It's important to have that kind of back and forth information, uh, back and forth feedback. um, you won't get it from every director or every game developer. It's you will in a more professional environment, but if you're working in game jams, it's a bit of a hit or miss. What else is really important? I'm sure I'll think of something. There was another question. So at the bottom of the screen, you basically said the loudness for each note. Yes, so this really depends on the program that you're using. In FL Studio, so this is my piano roll. This is where I'm writing the notes. I don't use a MIDI keyboard. Personally, I do I will be transitioning since I just got a desktop into getting one set up. But for the time being, I'm still using just the mouse. You don't need, again, you really don't need any huge equipment. And for the longest time, I was composing on a really old toaster laptop. So here I'm just, writing the notes. Um, and this is basically general velocity. So if you saw um, when I was doing the strings here, oops, wrong song, wrong place, wrong time. The velocity depends on what library you're also using. Some libraries don't allow you to set the velocity in here. Most of them will, but it's basically how powerful the note will be. It kind of combines, when you're not using a MIDI keyboard, it tends to combine expression and dynamic. But it's not just the general volume. If it's, for example, like a French horn, it can go from like being almost muted to very open and loud. So in this case, you can see the boom. It's basically, you can do accents with this. Now then, if I really wanted to play with just flow volume, there's multiple ways of doing it. Recently, I've transitioned to doing using channel volume. And basically, I can just press Control on the keyboard, and with my left, oh, wait, no, maybe it's not Control. Sorry, Alt. So with Alt, and I left click, and I can draw the velocity. So this is actual what you would translate to dynamics over volume more so. So here it's very quiet. So let's. So you can hear it's gotten very loud, but the actual, where are they? The actual note velocities, the individual ones, they've remained the same. Um, yeah, so it's a little bit split. You're working with multiple things, and it's great because it allows you to be more dynamic. I hope that answers the question. All right, all right, so again, all I've done is really just two instruments. You can use a harp. There's a little bit of a horse, and then you have, strings. And if you don't have a lot of time, and for example, if you're working on a game alone, um, you could just leave it at that. Um, then obviously it's all about, you know, building it up, adding more textures if you want, sound effects, just building up the atmosphere. All right. So I feel like the song is very bare. It's troubling me a little bit, but we gotta move on. So it's been 30 minutes on the towny one. Let's move on to snowy. All right. So um, just one little bit with towns that might be able to help you stereotypically when it comes to taverns, or if it's a town like this, or even D&D kind of feel. um if it's not such in like, for majority of the towns, You can actually look into inspiration from Celtic music and Celtic rhythms, because our brains tend to associate that kind of music a lot along with towns as well. And if you listen to some soundtracks, for example, if you go like with Skyrim, Skyrim is a really good one when it comes to town music. You'll be able to tell it has that kind of a really Celtic feel to it. And a lot of video game music when it comes to towns is that kind of tavern Celtic groove. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can use stereotypically. Um, you can, of course, explore and do, very new and very creative things. But if you're on the fly, don't have much time, look for what works, what's been tested. And then, I mean, I could go into a whole analogy behind like every note has supposed like different feel, different color. Again, it can be subjective for every person, but there is kind of like set in stone for the most part, even like with chords and chord progressions. And I'll be able to explain a little bit more about that when we get to space. All right, so moving on to snow. Now, for snow, I've actually prepared something a little bit really fun that I'm excited to do. So, just in a little metal bowl, it can be a plastic bowl, I put some salt. Um, Now, Yaka would be amazing at being able to explain this a lot better uh, when it comes to just Foley and things. But again, I'm not a Foley artist, I'm not an SFX artist. I focus on music composition. But I'm just trying to round, round out the whole experience here as quickly as possible, um, and with just some few quick tidbits. So, snow, let's say I was working on a game that the character was running in the snow. Um, you can use multiple different things. I decided to try with salt. So, what I'm going to do is with my fist, I'm going to record this. I don't have enough salt. I think I think that went across all right. I just wanted to get that bit of a crunch. Oops. Ooh, I have salt everywhere. All right. Ooh. Oh, okay. I like these. There we go. I'll take these three. I'll just. All right, there we go. So I'll just take these three and I'll just put them on repeat, because we have in the art piece, we have he's walking. So he's walking into the distance. So what we can actually do, so in this instance for a video game, I would just take each sound individually. I would cut them up, so it would just be one sound, another sound. I would edit them first, and then render them individually. So then the programmers would then put it in as three different sounds for the steps, and they would be alternating in the game. And in as when the character would step, you would hear that crunchy sound. Um, Before I would send it to them, if I had time, I would probably then also layer the sound, to just get that more of a realistic snow feel, and also depends on the perspective of the game. And a lot of it, that's right, that's what I forgot to mention also, is the type of game. Is it a 2D game, 3D game, pixel game? Because making an orchestral piece for a very pixel art game can work, but not always. I've made the mistakes. Um, so yeah, you want to find out as much as you can. For me personally, I also love to see art. So once the artists actually get to it, it's really inspirational, and it helps you a lot. And if the game dev can provide you with actual like temp pictures, just like temp music, um, that will also help you set the mood, and then you can look at the picture while you're working. Um, Check if the kind of feel fits into the frame or not. Also, thank you so much to Odin, Shanziart, and Jivus for the follows. Greatly appreciated. And Deadman for the host. Alright, so with this walk, I'm not going to do too much with it because I'd like to focus a little bit more on the music with this one. But I'm really loving that crunch already. Now, if I plugged in my stereo microphone, it would have recorded it even better because you'd hear it from maybe a little bit of right to left. Um, but you can also quite build that sound already in in the program itself. Um, but to make things quicker, a stereo microphone in that instance helps a lot. All right, so let's use compressor and let's go. Ooh, there is quite a bit of background sound. All right, so what I'll do is I'll automate the compression, um, and just kind of make it go. Oops, didn't want to do that. Squeeze it back in. Uh, didn't want to do that either. There we go. I got it. So I'm just kind of imagining. Again, this is less scoring. This is less me doing sound effects for a video game this moment, um, and more so just kind of the imagination of the picture. But the same process kind of applies, except I would just work on each individual footstep individually, render it individually, and then the programmers are the ones to set the randomness and variations. There is also a great program called Fmod. It's completely free. Actually going to be dabbling with it a lot more now since I have a desktop. But it connects with Unity perfectly, and I was informed that in Slovenian you call it zvočna slika. So you can create the sound image of a video game with it. So the composer composes the music, The sound effects artist creates the sound effects, or whoever's doing both. And you can insert it into there, and it basically you're able to create dynamic sound. So for example, if you had an MMORPG, you were in the forest, you were leaving the forest, you are able to map the sound, so the music from the forest is getting quieter as your position you're distancing, and the town music gets louder, or the town music starts playing at a certain key point where your character is. And actually, as Fmod for if you're a composer and working on game jams and things like that, it's actually really handy to know. All right. So I do have my fan running in the background. It is summer here. I apologize. Um, so yeah, you want to have the most quiet environment possible. Uh, there we go. That works. All right. Now let's make some music in pattern 3. Now I want some. So I'm imagining there's a. Actually, no. I want to do one thing first. I was thinking about it earlier. How do I create? How could I possibly create the sound of snow? And a really quick thing that popped into my mind was like, why don't I just try to blow, but use my hands to kind of create that bit of barriers and swooshes and things like that. So um, I'm gonna be experimenting if this is gonna work out. Okay, so all right, so there's a little bit of derpiness. Um, okay, let's see what I can do with this. It's this one, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Again, just quick experimentation. Not sure how well it's gonna work. If it's gonna work at all. But adding a bit of that reverb. And I'm just gonna layer a little bit more on top. All right. And I will add it to a different one. And I will do kind of a similar thing. And I'm gonna cut out this little breath here. And where's the other breath? All right. It's 24. Again, then I could layer over some static noise. Um, yeah, so I could add extra wind blowing with just white static. And then I can add it like fade in, fade out, add reverb, things like that. And there's also like plenty of SFX that you can find online. Actually, a great site is Splice. I have a subscription with them, so I get about 100 points per month, and I have access to different sound effects. Now, a lot of them, be it for like different swooshes, kicks for music, and things like that, you can find a lot of great sound effects that you can use in video games. And hi there, XX Noham. Welcome to the stream. Um, and yeah, so you can find various different things. All right, where were we? I just had Yaka PM me, so he's the professional Foley artist, and he's like, he said the best prop for snow instead of salt is actually cornstarch, and I should have thought about that. I've read about that long ago, but there you go, cornstarch, best sound effect creator for snow, and I can see why, because it would crunch a lot better. Um, yeah, but if you don't have cornstarch in Slovenia, for example, it can be a bit tricky to get it sometimes. I think I remember I've had some issues trying to find it when I was in Slovenia. Um, you can just use whatever you have on hand, or I mean, best cornstarch. Then you have other things like salt, sugar, rice. Um, yeah. There we go. Hey, it's not sounding that bad. Okay, could be better. Could be better. Let's get to the music. So, a really good stereotypical type of sound for snow or snow environment can be harp. It's quite often used, whether it be adventures kind of snow, blizzard, or such. You're likely to hear some kind of a harp in there. So the way I'm imagining this scene is kind of fantasy, Asian. It's quite dark. It's windy, snowy, but this is where, let's say, I was given the commission of to do it for something like dark, snowy, Asian. Um, I feel like potentially something calmer can also work. Hmm. Hmm. Actually, so Native Instruments has a brand new instrument that's completely free. It's called young queen, and it has different Asian instruments, particularly plucked instruments. Oh, goodness. I just realized what I'm doing. Oops. I was just opening multiple instances of it. I was I was enjoying it far too much. I do apologize. It's 4 a.m. here. My brain is not operating at 100% capacity. So it's not quite changing it. Oh, I like that. Okay. So we are working here. So with this one, I can actually make it a bit more just ambient, actually. Hello, I once had a plugin called Drum Cloud, I think. It reminded me of that. Oh, okay. I'm not sure which plugin reminded you of that. Or library. So we tend, well, uh, plugins, I tend to use the word plugin more so. So in a sense, everything is a plugin, but more so you tend to call plugins um, different effects that you put on the sound. So, like an equalizer, reverb, and things like that. Ooh, I heard a dingle. Thank you so much for the follows, and Noham. When delivering assets, do you master them? Is there a standard loudness specification regarding game audio, or do devs take care of that? Um, I do mix and master. Um, Again, it depends what your team is. Most of the time, I'm working alone on the audio or music, so I have to mix and master myself. I am not, and I repeat, I am not a very experienced mix and masterer. I'm not. I am working on improving that. but it's over the years, it's really been like about hello, sorry about that. It's really been about what do I want it to sound like, because if you have somebody else who's in between and mixing and mastering it for you, then you're quite out of, you don't have the control over that. Obviously in bigger productions you won't have that control anyway, because there'll be an audio engineer in between you and the game. Um, but when it comes to small projects, global game jam, and there is nobody in between, you do have to mix and master yourself. And it's great because it allows you to a practice on it, b really be able to create the sound atmosphere and just the music the way you want it to sound, like whether you want it to sound more spacious or more compact, or as far as loudness goes, the the programmers can actually set that, and they do tend to set that. Again, the in between, if there was a audio engineer, for example, in a global game jam project, they will more than likely be doing that. But in this instance, you just want to kind of set it to a general volume, not too loud. You want to make sure it does not clip. Um, it can happen that the music is too loud, but this is why you want to allow a little bit of time before the end of the game jam, for example, to be able to hear the music in game. Have the devs show you what it sounds like. If it's too loud, they can actually adjust it. If it's not loud enough, then I'm not quite sure if Unity would be able to support anything to fix that. So in that case, you would have to do it yourself. But just kind of the norm, basically, the way I go into the way I like to double check my music that it's safely safe is I always save it around maybe uh so it's coming up to about in FL Studio about 12 dB, no more. And then I insert it back into FL Studio. So this is what I do when I'm making the loops. So for anyone who wasn't here earlier, I would take the song, I would render it out, but I would render it with extra space at the end, especially if there's reverb on things. So then I would bring the file. At the moment, I just let's see, do I have anything here? I have this. I'm not sure what this is. All right, so this is something. Oh, so this is actually a great example. So this was something I was recently composing and recorded myself playing flute. So the game, so let's say we decided, most of the time you don't do it at 123, but depends. Let's say we decided the length of the music would be that, and that's going to be the loop. This is where you wanted it to end. So what you do is you take, I'm going to have to take it right here. It's not quite where I want it to be. And I cut it, cut it down that line, move it here. But what I also do is, because in this instance, I would have saved it as a smaller file, I would have clicked on it and I would have normalized it, and that would have just expanded the sound to where it should be without clipping. And then I just rendered this right here. And that's a basic loop for a video game. Now, if you really want to not have this part, It makes it a little bit trickier for the game developers, but it's doable. In that instance, you want to compose the song in a way where you have an intro, render the separate intro out for them, and then the looping part is the second part. But you have to have a good discussion with the developers first if they actually know how to do that, because it's a bit of a tricky process in Unity. Let's see, is there any questions? Um, yeah, so I think I covered that pretty much. Yeah, just so as long as you're making sure your song's not clipping, um, uh, and the way that I just showed you, that's basically a really easy way to make sure that it's not going to do that and it's going to be good volume. Um, and then the devs can just lower the volume as need be. All right, let's get so with this one, I'm just keeping it very simple, quite random. Actually, that's a little bit too formatted. All right, so just again, if you didn't have a lot of time, very basic, but you've brought your visuals to life, whether it's a game or you again with this. I wasn't using any music theory. I wasn't thinking about what I'm actually placing. It was just more about creating the emptiness of sound. So the empty spaces, just like in art and photography and things like that, the use of negative space or lack of sound, aka silence, um, is very powerful. Um, and it ended up being just what I initially wanted to do, a bit more of a relaxed type of feel, but it still works well. And it's just one Asian instrument. And if you can imagine the footsteps of your character actually walking through, um, yeah, then you can just build on it. Depends how much time you have. If you're just working on music alone, obviously you're going to have a lot more time to develop something even greater. And I think that's pretty much time on that. And I'll just spend a little bit of time on the spacey one. Um, all right, so yeah, let's go to pattern number 3. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask. All right, so with space, where did I add it? So there's, again, a couple of very cliche things you can do. And again, I didn't want to bring in too much music theory, but let me see. I might be able to let's just use piano for now. So before I mentioned that chords already have assigned certain predispositions, And that goes the same for chord progressions. You can even have just two chords, and they will tell you a different story that your brain will associate to, and that's based on kind of the things that have been done and done again, um, in films, in video games, and that's what they became associated with. So, for example, for space, you have three chords that work really well and create this very cliche sound. You can turn them around and you can change the chords, you can change the keys. But again, if you're short on time, um, want to get that spacey sound, you can use just this. Three chords. In fact, a lot of the time you would have heard it in movies. Just these two chords. Spacey, right? um, yes, don't be afraid to use cliche things. Don't overuse it, but like just have fun with it. If you feel like it's gonna fit in and it's gonna help you achieve that goal, then go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone uses chords. These chords have been used over and over. And I'm just gonna quickly pull. So Contact, I have Contact 6. I bought it when it was on sale, and it's a great player. So you have libraries, you have players. This is a player. Contact is a player. And it comes with a couple of libraries that are free. And all of the ones that you see here on the left are actually free. They came a couple of so factory library, kinetic uh, treats and such. Those actually you can download straight away when you're downloading Contact. But there's a couple of other ones like Young Queen and such that you just have to allocate, and you can have it for free. There's a lot of also cheaper libraries that require Contact, and even a lot of free ones. So it's a great tool to have, um, because at the end of the day, you get a full free orchestra. Obviously, it's not something super professional, but I've done so much work with the factory library. And then I just record myself playing my own instruments, and I use some other free VSTs, like Spitfire Audio has a free orchestra you can get and things like that. And once you layer those things, you can get pretty realistic sounds, and mixing and mastering has a lot to do with it as well. All right, so what was I doing? So with this, I'm just gonna use perhaps, let's go with Ethereal Earth. So I'm just gonna make a. So already, I feel like we're in space, and I didn't even do anything. It's just two chords. Ooh, I like that. So, for the sake of clichéness that I was talking about, I'm gonna use just these two chords. Just these two chords. let's see how we're going with space here. All right, so I can add one more. Yeah, let's leave it that. Now, there we go. It's just two chords, and now we can build on it. And I'm gonna record a little fun thing that I set aside. Um, but oh, nope. So let's just isolate this for now. Ethereal Earth. Let's put hybrid keys. Let's see what that sounds like. Actually, no. I'm gonna bring in Serum. Serum. So I'll just bring it in from here. Serum is great for composing electronic music. You can actually do pay to own, so it's like $10 a month, and that's also through Splice. And what I love about it is that I can individually buy different presets for it, so I don't have to buy a preset pack that has multiple different sounds, half of them which I might never use. I can just through Splice using my points, I can just buy individual presets that I want. Just gonna hydrate a little bit. Oh, okay. So we have another question. One question: what app are you using? I'm using Fruity Loop Studio, FL Studio. I have I have the signature bundle. Uh, so FL Studio. Um, so this is so the minimal one that you want to buy is producer edition. What the signature bundle is it basically comes with a little bit extra um, VSTs and plugins. So one of the things that it comes with is this video player. Now there is a way to get around it by using this. It's called a Z Game Editor Visualizer. However, I was never able to get it to work for me with videos, but it does have some great um, 3D modeled effects and things like that. So while you're playing your music, you can actually have that on and have the people view it kind of like a visualizer. But I personally wanted to have the video player and a couple of the other ones that came along with it. One thing that's really great with FL Studio is that you buy it once and it's not that expensive compared to other doors. And you have a lifetime of free updates. I've been using it for about 11 years now. So I started with FL Studio 9. I was going to switch, and I do eventually want to move on to Pro Tools, but I think I'll always stick around with this because it's not about what program you have, it's what you're used to. Because you're going to be the most efficient in whatever DAW that you're familiar with. Just like with any kind of instrument, except here you have multiple different instruments. Um, yeah, so with FL Studio, I've really enjoyed it, especially after they added in FL20. So once the FL20 update came out, it became a lot more viable for scoring to picture. The video player was less laggy. It was a lot more in tune with the actual timeline. So as you can see, I don't have to do anything specific to the video player. Um, itself is, oh, I shouldn't have been moving it. Itself actually automatically is timed to my actual playlist. So whether I go here, it moves, and then the timing of everything depends on the BPM. So if, for example, I was given an animation to score, or in that instance I would spot it, so that means I would use um, the metronome, which is up here, and I would just go through it, see where the hits, the downbeats come, because I would want to make sure that, I don't know, usually I would get uh, a spotted list, or at least a little bit of like when they might want certain kind of music, when they might want a big crash or something, and then um, I would just figure out what would be the best timing for it and things like that. Um, in the industry, a lot of the time things are um, made to work well with 120. I like to use 120 very often, especially in game jams, for example, like a rhythm game. So this music I'm currently working on for um, a rhythmic game, and uh, that one of my teams is working on, and I kept it in 120 specific specifically because when it comes to coding in games with music that are based around the music, so as I was saying, when it comes to games that are specifically based around the music, it can be very time consuming and difficult for the developers to get it in, especially if they're not familiar with how to do it correctly and mathematically. It's very mathematical. So with 120, it's a very safe BPM to use because it allows you to be like, okay, so the piece is in 120 beats per minute. One bar is going to be 2 seconds. Every beat is going to be 0. Oh, 0.5, I believe it's, yeah, 0.5 of a second. So for example, with that rhythm game, you're going to have to constantly be moving, so you're going to have to click every 0.5 seconds to the music. You're going to have to be in rhythm. um so those kind of things are really important to know, and obviously the length. So with this is great because you can go 2 minutes. Let me see, 2 minutes falls perfectly for if you want to do, oh wait, where is it, here. So 2 minutes falls here, uh and it's perfect because it allows you to create a beautiful orchestral score or an electronic piece. It's good enough length to make anything work. You can even do it in 1 minute, but it allows you to have that kind of a perfect um 2 minute piece, that has like um sorry, 4 times 16 bars, if I'm doing my math correctly. uh, what time is it again? um but yeah, it just, if you're working on a rhythm game, or even if you're doing music for a video game for the first time, 120 BPM is good to go with, because it'll be the easiest for you to be able to translate to the um, game developers, in terms of, if you do, for whatever reason, if it's a rhythmic game, okay, you 2 seconds for a bar, zero half a second for one beat, yada yada yada. All right, space, right? the great the great frontier. All right, so we have just two things here. I brought up Serum. Now, Serum's great for electronic music, but when you're composing for oh, oh sorry, when you're composing for like a space game, um, you want to be using electronic sounds because most of the time you can do big grand scores, and choir is great for that. But for video games, especially for game jams, safe to stick with electronic, especially if you don't write orchestral music. So what I'm looking for is actually, where is it? It's somewhere here. That's good. Oops. And then I can bring in a little bit of orchestral. Hopefully it'll. Oh, I'm not quite been saving this, have I? I'm gonna bring French horn. French horn is a beautiful instrument and great for space. I'm just checking if there's any more questions. Let me see. Experience. Nope. All right. Hopefully. So one thing while it's loading, hopefully it's not gonna crash because I left on. So I am still adjusting this desktop. It should not be doing this. It should not be crashing like this right now. Um, One thing that you want to look for in a computer when it comes to music composition is RAM and your processor. Those are the two biggest things. You want as much RAM as you can, and and also bandwidth speed, which means like SSD. If you put your libraries and things on an SSD, you're set. In fact, I've been saving up for many years now, and so with the only new thing that I bought for this secondhand computer is a Samsung SSD uh, M.2 NVMe Echo Plus 2 terabytes. And it's because I wanted to future proof myself, and because libraries, a lot of them are huge. And this way, I have the best possible bandwidth, and I have good RAM, which is 32 gigabytes, and my processor could be a lot better. It's only 4 cores and 8 processors, and in the future, I am going to upgrade to 8 cores and 16 processors. All right, it's loaded. Great, French horn. So I want sustain, and I maybe want to make it a little bit muted. I'm going to make big size. I'm going to make it wide. It's not going to be close. The mids are going to be up. Um, I'm going to add reverb to it. So that means I'm going to have to put this onto a separate master track, which is right here. I'm going to connect it with this tab second because the other two are on the first. I'm gonna route it to mixer, and it should be routed to number 7. Okay, great. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. All right, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of reverb, maybe a lot of reverb. I love reverb. Okay, you can't go wrong with reverb. Okay, you can, but you can't. All right, so where were we? French horn, French horn, French horn. Okay, so doubling up is your friend. Orchestral, electronic. Okay, maybe not so much electronic. Orchestral, definitely doubling up instruments. Even when you're working with like hybrid, doubling up electronic and orchestral can be grand. So here I'm gonna extend these. It's a bit too high for French horn. Oh, it's really quiet. So in this instance, I'm gonna compress the French horn. Okay, am I compressing the right thing? No, I'm not. I'm compressing the wrong thing. I need to compress this one, and I need to add reverb here. Ugh, I'm silly. I added reverb to the wrong one, but that's okay. Reverb, add some space, not too far. Add that compression in. Again, you don't have to use compressor. You can, most of the time, you want to just adjust here and the actual dynamics, but and then so with more expensive libraries, this one I bought. This one cost me about $30 when it was on a winter sale from ATO. Otherwise, I think it's around 80 or so. But this is just the French horns in all its beautiful glory. You can actually adjust the expression and dynamic. Now, with a MIDI keyboard, this would be done automatically, and you'd have special sliders on the MIDI keyboard, and if you have pedals and things like that. I don't have that, so I just can I can automate it to my liking. So I would click I would get it to automate, but I don't have time for that, so I'm just gonna choose what I feel sounds best. So you can hear the French horn. A lot of instruments do have a little bit of a delay. So what you do in that instance is you set it to none and just slide it a little bit. Um, Now there was one little thing because I am I am actually running out of time and I need to prepare for something else. I have a violin bow. I bought this bow for 10 bucks off somebody. And I have an oven rack. Fun fact, take a bow, put on a lot of rosin. It can be a violin bow, cello bow, but I would highly recommend not to use one that you're using for your violin. I definitely do not want my bows to be touching any of this. So that's why I have a spare one. But you can get these awesome event sounds just from your kitchen. Where is it? Here. Okay. I'm actually gonna record just a little bit, and this will be the last little bit I do for this for today. There we go. All right, so it's a bit hard to hold. All right. Usually I can get much better squeaks out of it actually. So let's see if I can do it again. There we go. So you just drag the whole bow over all of these. I'm not quite sure what the metal racks are called, but great sound effects, especially for if you were to do something for like a horror video game or such. Yeah, very spooky. But it's also very good for space kind of sound too. Or futuristic. And the beautiful thing about it is that it actually reverbs on its own. It's amazing. It's just, thin metal, but it creates this like you can't really hear it in the this microphone particularly, but it has hear that? That's its own natural reverb and it keeps going. But because I do have background sounds, I'm not going to normalize it. So I'm just going to work with as is. Let's see, maybe add. And this deep kind of sounds right here. Usually, so if you've ever listened to like videos where they translate radiation into sounds from different planets. A lot of them have these kind of a deep, husky hum. It's really beautiful. So just put it to 30. One thing I hope ImageLine implements is actual, oh no, actual groupings. What have I done? Actual groupings and oh, there we go. Actual groupings and locking of channels. Because as you can see, it's very easy to drag it and move something. And you don't even realize it. And then you play the song again and you're like, ew, why is that sounding so horrible? It's because you accidentally moved it. And then you're trying to find what you moved, but you can't find it for 2 hours. And then it's just like, oh, that's what it is. So image line, please. We gotta lock them. All right, so where are these sound effects? Here we go. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So I do need to get a spotting mic. That would help a lot. Or if I brought it closer to the mic, the best one of my favorite is to actually grab a stereo mic for that particular effect. Having a stereo mic, and if you're going for like a horror atmosphere, whew, that's bellissimo. And we can also pitch this actually. It's another good little thing I can show is so if you're working in FL Studio, make sure you're setting something if you're going to pitch it to E3 generic. That means it's not going to change the speed of it as well. Because usually if you're pitching it up, it goes faster, down, slower. This way it will remain the same. And I'm just going to pitch it. There we go. And I can do a little bit of fade in, fade out with some automation here. Another great instrument. Dang, I keep see. This is like when you're just having so much fun. You're just adding things, and it's like, ooh, what if I add this? What if I add this? It's so much fun. I also have a problem of my brain constantly exploding with ideas, so that's another thing. So another brilliant cliche instrument for space is either chimes or a glockenspiel. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the samples in this library, in the factory library myself of glockenspiel, but it'll do. Oh, is it set to 4? Yeah. So what I can do is, so we have the and I'm gonna have to bring it up because I have everything else up. I'm gonna have to create another channel, create separate master point, glockenspiel, put that at 3. Don't worry about that error thingy message. It comes up on every computer for every person until they fix it. Until they fix it. Doesn't do anything. Sometimes it just glitches up the VST. If that happens, then just reload it into the same instance and you'll be fine. All right. So okay. So wait, where is it coming through? Oh, my bad. So quiet. It's like a little mouse. All right. So add some reverb. Actually, add a lot of reverb. Why not? All right. And this is where you go back and change it. And you extend these. Sweet. All right. I think that's practically it. Let's go through all of them. They're not quite where I'd like them to be, but my intent behind this was really to show the different atmospheric properties, and how we can use some very simple cliche tips and tricks to enrich your environment. Ooh, ooh, we have some things going on that we don't want there. And all right. well, there you have it. I'll play it one more time at the very end. I hope you guys enjoyed this little uh, audio atmosphere session. Again, I'm not an SFX or Foley artist, I focus on music composition. However, I thought I'd just give a couple of well rounded little examples and how you can just kind of quickly be able to create and experiment just little bits to enrich your next work, or if you're looking to, just find some extra little bits. Well, thank you for giving me the platform, Slovenian Games, and yeah, I hope everyone has a fantastic global game jam. I'm so pumped and excited. I know we all are. It's already been a very exciting atmosphere in Slovenian Games Discord. I'm not sure if you would like to link it. And make sure also to check out Blue Skittle. His artwork is absolutely stunning, and I am just excited for the next piece to be released because it's this beautiful fairy forest. And yeah, just stay creative, have fun, experiment, um, and just don't feel like you should be limited by your experience or lack of knowledge, because nowadays, even if you don't know something, 9 times out of 10 you can learn it online, and there's so many amazing communities out there that are more than happy to help you. And yeah, just get out there, get composing, get creative, and have fun. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your evening, morning, or day, wherever you may be. Stay hydrated and take care.
Thank you very much, Maya. And with that, I would also like to invite you to join us at 9, where Maya will have her own DJ session, and this will be live on our Discord server, which I linked below. And yeah, thank you all for joining us, and see you soon.